I have nothing on that last presentation. Nothing. I mean, I was going to take the Uber and go to Costa Mesa and get out of here before I had to speak. So, you know, I now understand why when I woke up this morning there was a hang tag on my door that said, join the swim team. And now I know where the card under the door came from and the magnet on my door. So, so Matt called me and said, look, I'll give you 20 grand if you'll come up here and talk for 20 minutes about anything you want. And I said, boom, put me on a plane. You got me. So we had more fun coming up with the title than we probably will now listening to me talk. Really, it was just a matter of how can I think of an out-of-the-box way as a college coach to have you look at how can I, you know, raise more money for my team, get more sponsorships, and put that all together. So I really started trying to figure out, well, how do I want to present that, and what would that look like if it was just something really different? So I went with the angle of, what would it look like if I was a club and I had a recruiting weekend? I'm a college coach. My success comes off recruiting. How good is my team? Why would you pick me versus somebody else? I coach in the Ivy League. You're going to get a good Ivy League education in any of the schools. Why pick Princeton over someplace else? And so I really tried to figure out, well, why would a sponsor want to come to a club? What are you offering? You know, what are you really giving? And I'm pretty old school when it comes down to it. And so I really try to look at my team and say, what am I really doing? I'm an educator, all right? And yes, I love to win. There's nothing I love more than winning. And winning means I got to get you to go fast. So what's the difference between just coaching someone to win, coaching someone to go faster, and coaching the human being? And so a long time ago, I realized that what I was really doing was trying to grow women. How am I going to grow these athletes? Even if I go way back in my career to when I was coaching club, I had the 5 and under group, and we would have breakfast circle, and it was all about how can we make these kids just better little kids, you know? How can we make it fun, and how can we get them going? And so I just want to encourage you to think out of the box a little bit about how you might take college recruiting, apply it to your club program. And so when I'm looking at somebody, they're going to want to know all of these things. Why do I want to pay all that money to go to Princeton? So I'd like to talk about perception, value, and culture. And how do we take those 3 things and convince a sponsor, you really want to give me that money and invest in this club program. And so I went to the University of Tennessee. So when I started looking at where's the value in a sponsor investing in me, I decided, all right, well, I'll compare it to people's perception of, wow, you coach at Princeton, that costs a lot of money. Yeah, you're right, it does. So I went to Tennessee, and when I looked at that, I was like, ooh, that costs that much to go there now? I must be really old. So in-state, Tennessee, $28,000, out-of-state, $46,000. So, you know, I'm trying to convince somebody you want to walk away from a scholarship and you want to pay to go to Princeton. Why would you do that? So that's what it costs to go to Princeton, $58,000. So when you really look at it, if the perception is I have a better product and I'm trying to get you to go away from a scholarship, and you're thinking, why would I want to pay that? When you really get down and you get the real information of what I offer, you realize, wow, it could actually be cheaper for my kid to go to Princeton than to go somewhere else. And so the difference in cost, if you wanted to go out of state to Tennessee and go to Princeton, would be 12 grand. And the average grant, the average family grant to come to Princeton is $48,000. And a lot of people don't know that. And so as clubs, you know, are we looking at what our bottom line dollar cost is for a family to come join us? And how do I go to a sponsor and try to say, well, this is why you should invest in me, because I have a really good product and I'm offering a Princeton of clubs. What's that look like? And so it just comes down to value. What are we teaching in our club? What are we teaching at our universities? What do our kids walk away with? You know, Ben talked yesterday about a mission statement. Jason talked today about catch us doing something good. Those are the things that I really want to say. If we could focus on those types of things, and we can go to a sponsor, and a sponsor realizes this is what we're really bringing to the community, what would that look like? Because that's when I think you can really talk about the value that you're going to get. So you got to be able to go to a sponsor and say, this is what's really important to me. And so when I look at that at Princeton, it's more about what makes me different. What are you getting at Princeton that you might not get if you go down the street? And so for me, I don't want to talk about the swimming angle of it. I want to talk about what I'm going to do for you when you walk out my doors. And so I'm doing things like DISC profiles. I'm running a behavior profile on every one of my athletes. And so with that, I'm teaching them how to communicate. Why is that important in swimming? Well, if I can teach them how to communicate, they're going to be a better team member. And they're going to be a better person. And they're going to represent my product better, your club, my university. And we're taking time out of the water to work on core values and all kinds of team functions that, when it comes down to it, why would I want to invest so much of my time teaching these things versus aerobic training or anaerobic threshold or whatever else I need to do to get you to swim fast? Because I'm going to backdoor you into being a great person by teaching life skills, and then you're going to be a better representative of my school, and you're going to realize that I have given you a higher value. All right? So I want the kind of kids in my program that are going to come in and they want this. And if I'm telling you about this and your eyes are going another direction, then I know you probably don't want to work that hard in college. You probably want to just swim. And I don't want people who just swim. I want people who can really, really take it to the next step. So when I looked at that and I tried to compare it to what you folks are trying to do, how do I get more sponsorships? How do I keep retention? How do I bring more money into the club? I thought about Tim Elmore. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dr. Tim Elmore. He writes a blog, and if you haven't read it, I highly encourage you to sign up for it. It's a parenting blog and a leadership blog for this generation. And Tim Elmore uses a thing called Habitudes. And Habitudes are visual images, just like what kids want when they're seeing the tweets and Snapchats and everything else. They want that visual connection. And he's using Habitudes to be able to create conversation. So how do we teach our kids, and how do we make them really think about what they're doing? So what I wanted to say to you is, how do you think about how you're recruiting your sponsors to your program? So I thought, well, I'll use a habitude. So this habitude is, are you a host or are you a guest? And so when I'm recruiting, I throw recruiting weekends. And so that means I'm hosting. And so what I would ask you is, are you looking at hosting sponsors and really giving them something back for their dollar and really making them proud that they're involved with your program and that you're teaching the kind of things that you want your kids to have, those life skills, that value, that culture, that they want to say, I want to be a part of that program, all right? Or are you just a guest? Are you just letting kids come in and it's just whatever it is? And I know that's hard on some of the bigger teams. However, if we could look at sponsorship in a way of, are you a host or are you a guest, it would be a different thing. And so if you could just host a recruiting weekend. So what if your club did? What if instead of being a college coach hosting a recruiting weekend, I host a weekend for sponsors? And so I'd host a party. And so I tried to look at a different way to get you to think about, what would it look like if you and your club hosted a party? And maybe you work with USA Swimming to bring in a national team athlete that brings and draws people in. and you go around and you invite every local pizza place, the car dealer, the local hotel, the Applebee's, you name it, Olive Garden, get them all in there and really host a party and have your athletes be your hosts. So if you come to Princeton on a recruiting weekend, I'm going to introduce you to my swimmer, Matt Farrell, and he's going to host you this weekend. He's going to tell you all about Princeton, and he's going to convince you really want to be here. Well, what better thing than to have your athletes matched up with sponsors who you've invited to a party. You haven't even talked to them about giving you money yet. You're just bringing them in and saying, look at what we're doing here in the community. Look at what we're teaching our kids. And having your kids talk to sponsors about that. You know, and if you can get an Olympian in, then maybe you have a little private party prior to that. But you celebrate your whole team, because this is a party for everyone. It's a party for your parents, your kids, the families, the sponsors. And that's just one way to really look at it and say, could we take a twist on college recruiting and make it a recruiting weekend for our club? What kinds of things could we do to pull in more sponsors and more dollars? And so just something to think about. The other thing is, somebody yesterday, I think it was Ben, talked about alumni. All right, one of the biggest things about a place like Princeton is alumni. On our recruiting weekends, you know, if I could have alumni back, I wouldn't have to recruit at all. I think it's one of the strongest things that we have. But I'm trying to create a program where kids want to come back, all right? I like knowing that when at a big dual meet, I'm going to look up in the stands and I'm going to have 100 alums back because they just love coming back to support the team. And so one of the cool ideas I thought about when I look at what Princeton's doing to raise money and how you might be able to do that in your club is, number one, when you graduate from Princeton as a senior, you're asked to sign a pledge card. And it's like, I will give $10 every year for the first 5 years I'm out of school. And so they get you in the habit of giving back to something that's important to them. So what would it look like if when a kid goes to college, you had a pledge card that I'll give $1 for every year I'm in college and coming back, and literally $1. So that when they graduate from college, you ask them for $5. And then 5 years later, you're asking them for 10. And you just keep upping it. But you're getting your alumni. You know, when you look at what Jason was talking about with a number of people that come through a Dynamo swim club, you know, if you could look at an alumni base and say, we want kids to give back to this program. And out of that, you figure all of your alumni, some of those people are going to be very, very successful. They're going to become your sponsors, potentially. And so the other part is, you know, you can do a number of things when you start that kind of alumni thinking, because you can bring in, well, you know, where's my master list of my alums? What are their professions? Now, when I have kids going to college, I'm going to be helping them look at future jobs. That's a value to the community and to the sponsors. And I think if you can do something like this and host an alumni event, we all know that when you come back for an alumni event, you never talk about how fast you swam, right? Nobody goes, oh, I went 53.15. The one thing they talk about is, you remember that bus ride we took where the bus broke down, and then we had to go to that awful pizza place, and then we went and did this and we did that, and coach got mad at us. It's stories. And your alumni can be your source. They can also be part of your board that will allow you to build that up and go out and get more sponsors. And so I just want to encourage you to think about doing something like that, and do it a little bit differently, as if it was a college team. How am I going to keep this team together always? All right? I think we all want to have some pride in our clubs that we grew up in, and I don't think we ever really forget the coaching impact people have had on us as we grow. All right, so if we can't look at it as a host or a guest, maybe you want to look at it in another way and say, is it chess or is it checkers? And as we look at our alumni, as we look at our sponsors, I think the most important thing that I would encourage is to really figure out what's that sponsor need from us, and how can we as a club show some value in that. Whether it's the pizza place down the street and you're going in there all the time and you're always shouting them out, or they're giving you value in kind for your meats so that you can make more money. It seems like a small thing, but you're involving more people and you're making sure that you're taking care of your sponsors in a little bit of a different way. And so there's Tim Elmore's Growing Leaders website. I definitely encourage everybody to check that out, because it's also something that you can post on your websites for your clubs and let people check into that, because I think it seems that most people want to make sure that parents and coaches have more access to how do we better treat this generation and how are we going to work with it. Tim Elmore is somebody that's constantly doing that, and it can be a real help to you.